Small towns are supposed to be safe. Everyone knows everyone. Streets are quiet at night. Nothing ever really happens, or at least that's what people like to believe. But sometimes, that silence hides things far worse than anything you'd expect in a big city. These are 3 true stories from people who grew up or lived in small towns. Places where strange events don't just fade into the background. They linger. They get whispered about. And in some cases, they're never explained. The first story comes from a town so small, it barely shows up on a map. I grew up in a farming town with less than 1,000 people. There was one main road, a gas station, a diner, and a grain elevator that loomed over everything like a rusted monument. Most people left as soon as they could. The ones who stayed either loved the quiet, or were too used to it to imagine anything else. When I was 16, my parents went out of town for a weekend, leaving me alone in the house for the first time. It wasn't a big deal. Nothing ever happened there. I'd lived in that house my whole life without a single scary experience. The first night was uneventful. I watched TV, ate junk food, and went to bed around midnight. That's when I heard the knocking. It wasn't loud. Just 3 slow knocks coming from the back door. I froze, listening. The back door opened onto a small porch that led straight into our yard and then into open fields. No one ever came back there. I stayed still, convincing myself it was just the house settling. A few seconds later, the knocking came again. Same rhythm, same spacing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, walking slowly down the hallway. When I reached the kitchen, I could see the outline of the back door. There was no one there. The porch light was off, but the moonlight showed the porch clearly. Empty. I checked the lock. Still locked. I told myself it had to be a tree branch or an animal and went back to bed. I didn't sleep much. The next night, it happened again. This time, it was later around 2 a.m. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Only this time, they were louder. I didn't get out of bed. I stayed where I was, staring at the doorway to my room. After a minute, the knocking stopped. Then I heard footsteps. They were coming from outside, moving slowly around the house, gravel crunching beneath each step. Whoever it was didn't rush. They walked like they had nowhere else to be. I texted a friend, asking if anyone was messing with me. They told me no one was out and asked if I wanted them to call the sheriff. I said no. In a town that small, calling the sheriff meant everyone would know by morning. The footsteps stopped near my bedroom window. I lay there, barely breathing, staring at the dark glass. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A fingernail scraping lightly against the window. Just once, slow and deliberate. I squeezed my eyes shut and told myself it wasn't real. When I finally worked up the courage to look again, nothing was there. The next morning, I found footprints in the dirt behind the house. They weren't fresh, but they were there, leading from the fields, around the house, and back the same way. When my parents came home, they brushed it off. Probably someone cutting through the fields, they said. But I never slept comfortably in that house again. Years later, I mentioned it to an older neighbor. She went quiet and asked if the knocking happened after midnight. When I said yes, she just nodded and said, "It always does." She wouldn't explain further. The second story comes from someone who worked in a small town where everyone recognized every face, or so they thought. I moved to a town of about 2,000 people for a job opportunity I couldn't pass up. It was the kind of place where strangers stood out immediately. People noticed new cars, new faces, new routines. I worked evenings at the local grocery store. We closed at 10 p.m., and most nights were quiet. By the time we locked the doors, the parking lot was usually empty. One night, while counting the register, I noticed a man standing outside the front doors. He wasn't trying to get in. He just stood there, staring into the store. At first, I assumed he was waiting for someone. But minutes passed, and he didn't move. I walked closer to the doors and tried to get a better look. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His face was turned slightly away, like he didn't want to be seen clearly. Something about the way he stood made me uneasy. Too still, too deliberate. I asked my coworker if she knew him. She looked, frowned, and shook her head. In a town like that, not recognizing someone was unusual. After about 10 minutes, he turned and walked away, disappearing between the buildings across the street. The next night he came back. Same spot, same posture, same silence. This went on for over a week. He never tried to enter, never waved, never acknowledged us. He just stood there until closing and then left. We told our manager, who checked the security footage. The cameras showed him standing there, but every time he left, the footage glitched slightly. A brief distortion, like static. One night I stayed late to finish inventory. It was just after midnight when I finally turned off the lights and stepped outside. The man was standing in the parking lot. This time he was much closer. I stopped, keys in hand, my heart pounding. He slowly turned to face me. His face looked wrong. Not in a monstrous way, just empty. His expression didn't change as he stared at me. His eyes didn't blink. I asked if he needed help. My voice sounded small in the empty lot. He didn't respond. He took one step toward me. I ran. I didn't look back until I was in my car, doors locked. When I finally glanced into the mirror, the lot was empty. The next day, I asked around town if anyone knew him. No one did, not the police, not longtime residents. No one. A few weeks later, I heard that someone else had seen him standing outside the library late at night. Then outside the school. Then one day, people stopped seeing him altogether. To this day, no one knows who he was, or why he only appeared after dark, or why he never showed up clearly on camera. The final story comes from a town with a population under 500, surrounded by forest on all sides. I grew up in a place where the woods were always watching. Trees lined every road. At night, the darkness felt alive. When I was in my early 20s, I moved back home to help take care of my grandmother. Her house sat on the edge of town, right where the pavement ended and the dirt roads began. One night, just after midnight, I heard someone calling my name from outside. At first, I thought it was my imagination. But then it happened again. My name, clear as day, coming from the direction of the trees. I went to the front window and looked out. The yard was empty. The trees beyond it swayed gently in the breeze. I told myself it was probably a neighbor or someone messing around. Still, something about the voice bothered me. It sounded like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my skin crawl. Same tone, same rhythm. I didn't answer. The voice came again, this time closer. Still calling my name. Still coming from outside. I backed away from the window and locked the door, even though it already was. My grandmother slept through it all. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same voice. This time, it came from the back of the house. I stayed inside, lights off, heart racing. The voice moved slowly around the house, calling my name softly, patiently, like it was trying not to scare me. After several minutes, it stopped. The next morning, I found footprints in the dirt near the tree line. Bare footprints. Too large to be a child's, too narrow to look normal. I called the sheriff, who came out and looked around. He didn't say much. Just told me to stay inside at night and call if it happened again. That night, I heard knocking on the back door. I didn't answer. The knocking turned into scratching. Slow, deliberate scratching. Then the voice came again, right outside the door. It sounded irritated now. I called the sheriff. By the time he arrived, everything was silent. The footprints were gone. A few days later, an older man in town pulled me aside and asked if I'd heard something calling my name at night. When I said yes, his face went pale. He told me the same thing had happened to his brother years ago. His brother followed the voice into the woods. They never found him. I moved away shortly after that. The woods still surround that town. People still live there. And sometimes, if you ask the right person, they'll tell you not to answer if you hear your name called after dark. Because in small towns, some things don't need explanations. They just need to be avoided.